If I had 10 foods that I had to pick to eat for the rest of my life, and I had no refrigerator, like I was just stuck on a sailboat in the middle of the ocean that was lost at sea, and I needed to try to live as long as I possibly could, these are the foods that I would choose. Now, these are strategically put together because some of them are going to have synergy together, and some of them are just going to be flat out how I can keep muscle on me so I don't waste away. Now, again, full disclaimer, if I wanted to just put weight on, I could probably just eat coconut oil and live, right? But let's pretend that I'm hoping I get picked up at some point and I want to still be in decent metabolic health and condition. Before I get into all these, I put a link down below for the video sponsor, which is Thrive Market. That is a 30% off discount link for your entire first grocery order. So load up your grocery cart, everything that you would want from Thrive Market, 30% off your entire first grocery order, and a free $60 gift. So you can sort by diet type, you can sort by low carb, you can sort by gluten-free, yada, yada, all of it, and load up your grocery cart. And that way, you can also sort by things like Mediterranean, you can sort by sugar-free. So it does all the guesswork for you. That way you're not having to go and look at labels and get confused and run into your weird neighbor at the grocery store. So that link is in the top line of the description underneath this video. The first thing that I'd pick is probably somewhat of an obvious one. I would pick jerky or meat sticks. That would be with me. And I would pick fermented meat sticks if I had the option. And the reason that I would choose that is because there's actually some benefit to fermented meat. There's bioactive peptides that actually have a response within your body and actually are good in other ways outside of just the protein. So I would select ones that have been fermented. It also makes the protein slightly easier to digest and tastes really darn good too. Now that doesn't mean that I wouldn't have regular jerky sticks either. Like those are perfectly fine. If I had to pick the best ones, I would go for ones that are fermented. And that's for the most basic reasons, because I need the protein. And honestly, the sodium would probably do me some good too, as long as I'm not drinking ocean water. Secondly, I would bring Parmesan cheese crisps. They have a really good shelf life. They have bioactive peptides in them. They actually have a microbial effect because they're aged hard cheeses. So these aged cheeses have quite a benefit. So things like possibly a dried pecorino romano. So you ever seen like those Parm crisps? They have them at Costco, they have them in the grocery stores. Yeah, they're decently caloric. They're going to get me the dairy fat that is proving to be very good when it comes to longevity, those C15 fats and the conjugated linoleic acid. I could choose any high fat food that would probably keep me alive for a while, but I choose something like an aged cheese crisp because I think dairy fat is very pro longevity. Number 3 is one that's not that exciting. I would probably bring cans of sardines. Like sure, in theory, I could fish for sardines depending what kind of waters that I'm in, but I do need to get some good quality omega-3s. Like when you're looking at the balance of things, I need to have something for the brain. I need to have something that helps with what's called cell fluidity, membrane fluidity, and omega-3s are really strong for that. In my interview with Dr. Rhonda Patrick, we were talking about how important omega-3s are for overall longevity. Being deficient or low omega-3 index is a bigger risk factor in many cases for cardiovascular disease than smoking. Literally being low in omega-3s could be worse for your health and cardiovascular disease than smoking. That's not just me talking, that's scientific literature and Dr. Rhonda Patrick. We had this pretty intense discussion on that.
What is possibly worse than smoking when it comes down to life expectancy?
Yeah, it's funny because we were talking about this a moment ago, and it sort of blew my mind to see some data. This is out of Bill Harris's group that looked at life expectancy and the omega-3 index, which is a really good way of measuring your omega-3 levels. Everybody knows smoking is bad for you, right? I mean, that's like common knowledge. Everybody knows that. However, when you look at life expectancy and you sort of stratify the data according to smokers and non-smokers, smokers with a high omega-3 index, in other words, they have high levels of omega-3, have the same life expectancy as non-smokers with low omega-3. And if you look at the data, there's this beautiful graph. The life expectancy curves overlay where those two are the same. And it's just kind of mind-blowing because not getting enough omega-3, not having a high omega-3 index, was as bad as smoking with respect to life expectancy.
Number 4 is the only kind of obscure food that's going to be on this list, and that is going to be dried sweet potatoes. I don't remember the brand name, but there is a brand at Costco where they're dried sweet potatoes. And the reason that I would have these is there could come a time when having a little bit of an insulin spike from some carbohydrates could help me. Look, if I was stuck on a sailboat, there's not much need for me to have carbohydrates. I did a similar video with a desert island too, but these are non-perishables, right? So there's no real need for me to have a bunch of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not essential for survival. They are fairly important when you're working out a lot, especially with high volume. They can certainly help recovery a bit, and even that's up for debate. But I like the sweet potatoes because they are a potent source of antioxidants for me. The thing is, I'm not getting a lot of polyphenols with the meat in the canned food. I'm just not. And polyphenols are hugely important. When you look at the Mediterranean diet, the polyphenols are probably one of the more potent reasons as to why the Mediterranean diet is potentially so good for longevity. So give me some of those sweet potatoes in an air-dried fashion so I at least get the anthocyanins, I at least get the carotenoids from it, and then I get a little bit of fiber too, which seems to have a potent effect for longevity as well. Number 5, I would bring dried cocoa nibs or cacao powder, or even chocolate if it was more sustainable. But dried cocoa nibs or cacao nibs, they would sustain for quite a while. Why would I do that? Again, one of the most potent sources of antioxidants that I could get. So you might be saying, oh, but they're gonna have oxalates, or they might have heavy metals. First of all, I'd be selective of the brand. I can't tell you the brand right now, I don't know. They're all over the place with which ones are high in heavy metals and which ones aren't. But at the time of packing for my endless supply of non-perishables, I would look for the ones with the lowest heavy metal, lowest cadmium count, and then I would also look at ones that have the highest antioxidant profile. You can look this stuff up online, but dark chocolate is one of the most potent antioxidants that is out there. They have a high degree of them. And if it's something that's going to be a non-perishable, it just makes a lot of sense for me. That, along with maybe some like dried Haskap berry. Haskap berry is really rich in anthocyanins. It's up in like Nova Scotia region, other parts of Canada up in the north, and it's one of the most potent antioxidant rich fruits that you could find, and they do make a powder of that. So I'd probably bring something like that or cocoa. Number 6, I'd bring tallow. I would bring straight up tallow because it'll probably last forever. And if I ever run into a situation where most of this food's gonna go bad, I know that the tallow is probably going to have a strong chance of exceeding the expiration of these other foods. That, and it's good quality saturated fat that's going to get me what I need to sustain life. Is it going to be bad if I only ate that? Even that's up for debate, but no one's saying I'm only eating the tallow. It's my emergency food and it's something that's gonna last for a long time. Number 7, macadamia nuts. I am choosing fats that are stable. If I was gonna choose any other kind of nut, it'd be hard because a lot of them have a high amount of polyunsaturated fats. Macadamia nuts are predominantly monounsaturated fats, which means they are pretty stable. And monounsaturated fats are probably the most healthy fat that is out there. Polyunsaturated are very unstable and they have the potential of getting oxidized quite easily. I definitely don't want any peroxidation in my body or oxidation if I'm stuck out on a boat in the middle of nowhere. Granted, my main priority is surviving. Don't get me wrong, I get that. But I also don't want to be bringing garbage in. So macadamia nuts have the best chance of staying stable and giving me a good fatty acid profile with a very low omega-6 index. Next up, I would bring whey protein powder and or colostrum. Probably whey protein though. Colostrum is not high enough protein content. I would choose whey protein because I would get a high muscle protein synthesis rate from it. So if I needed to do push-ups on this boat and stimulate some of my muscle preservation, whey protein probably has the best chance of inducing muscle protein synthesis because of its high leucine content and because its high insulinogenic nature, which means it spikes insulin pretty high, allowing for an even better potential muscle recovery. Not to mention, when you look at the bioactive components of like a whey protein concentrate, you're getting lactoferrin, which could bind and chelate to excess minerals within the gut as well. So lactoferrin has huge benefits. So I consider whey protein, candidly, a bit of a superfood, even though it's considered ultra processed. It's something that would absolutely be on my list if I wanted to live as long as possible, especially if I wanted to maintain some form of body composition while I'm stuck on this boat. You never know if I need to look good for a hammerhead shark, or if, what if a sea lion comes up? Something that actually breathes some air for a second. I wanna make sure I look the best that I possibly can for any air-breathing mammal. Number 9, I would bring bone broth. I'd probably get a little tired of consuming marine bone broth and I'd want some actual bovine bone broth. Plus, I feel like it's a way to get electrolytes. It's something that would keep me sane, something that I could sip on where I have some substance, and I'm also getting collagen, I'm getting gelatin, and I'm getting these things that just have at least some benefit. And last but not least, I would bring olive oil. And I wrestled back and forth with this one. Do I do avocado oil because it has a higher smoke point? I'm like, I'm on a boat. It's not going to get that hot. Plus, olive oil does have a high degree of antioxidants. That hydroxytyrosol is one of the most potent antioxidants that we know in the world. And olive oil, being a monounsaturated fat, is pretty stable. Granted, I'm going to be on a boat and it's probably going to oxidize eventually. So the best bet is going to be stable fats, obviously the saturated fats. But I do need some variety, and I do need some things that are going to give me monounsaturated fat content, and I do need some more antioxidants as much as possible. So if I have to live on this boat, it's not going to be the most glamorous, but I can think of some pretty tasty things that could come along with these 10 non-perishables. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel. See you tomorrow.